Welcome to the Midnight Society. Tonight, you will hear a group of tales that will tingle your spine in more than one way. These tales of supernatural events are totally true. They have happened to each individual storyteller. And tonight, we welcome them to our group. Now, sit back, relax, and look out behind you.
Hello everybody, I'm Laura. For the approval of the Midnight Society, I'm going to tell you the story of the Phantom Steps. And this is a true story. And I know it's a true story because this happened to me. So I was sitting on my sofa one night. I was very relaxed. I had my blanket over me to keep me nice and warm and cozy, and I was reading my book. And then all of a sudden I heard thump, thump, thump. Sound of footsteps above me. Then I thought, how could this be? I'm the only one in the house tonight. So I just put it down to me being a bit tired. I'd imagined those sounds of thump, thump, thump. There wasn't really any footsteps. I was just imagining it, surely. So I carried on reading my book. Then I took some sips of my hot chocolate, delicious hot chocolate, and then all of a sudden I heard thump, 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 heavy footsteps above me again. And at that point I realised I'm not imagining this. This is really happening. Was I scared? Of course I was scared. But I had to be brave. I had to go and investigate. What was upstairs? What was making that thump, 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 thump sound above me? So I walked up my stairs. And yes, I was anxious. I was shaking, but I had to be brave. I had to find out what was upstairs. I was the only one in the house, so who was walking, making those footstep sounds? So I went up the stairs and I looked around the rooms, and there was nobody there. Not a soul. The house was still, quiet. I'll admit I was quite freaked out, but I'd looked around and, as I say, there was nothing there. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to stop reading and I'm just going to go to sleep. I'm going to go to bed. So I went downstairs, turned all the lights off, got a drink of water for the night, and I come upstairs, ready for bed. And as I got into bed, I felt really, really tired and started to relax again. And then I heard, yes, you've guessed it, thump, 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 thump of footsteps again, but this time they were louder footsteps. They felt heavy above me. What was above me? It was the loft. Now, here's the weirdest thing. There's not even a floor in the loft. At the time we were having a loft conversion done, so all there was were beams, wooden beams, no floor. I laid there, scared, trying to figure out what the sounds could be, and I just heard thump, 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 and it was getting faster. The footsteps were louder, they were faster. And I thought, what is this? I need to know what this is. What is this? What is this sound? So I grabbed my torch from next to my bed and I walked out into the hallway, and I got to the loft hatch and I got the handle and I pulled it down. The ladder come down and I slowly but surely made my way up the ladder. This moment was one of the scariest moments in my life, because when I looked in to the room in the loft, it was bare. I saw something that I'll never forget, ever forget. It was a shadow figure, a dark shadow figure, completely see-through, dark. And it was coming towards me, and I panicked. And all I heard were these footsteps, these phantom steps, and they were coming towards me, and it was going thump, 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 thump.
It was one of my best friend's birthdays. She threw a huge slumber party. I remember it vividly. There were eight girls, aged 12 and 13. Now, her parents happened to own several houses on the same street, and one of those houses didn't have any renters at the time. So they thought it would be a good idea for us girls to go stay the night in that empty house. My friend had some games we could play, and one of the things that she had gotten for us to play with was a Ouija board. So they set it up, got a bunch of candles, and placed them all around the room, lit the candles, turned out the lights, and then they decided who they wanted to talk to, which was a young boy who happened to have lived down the street from my friend before an accident that tragically ended his life. The little triangle pointer thing on the Ouija board starts moving. There are 3 girls that have their hands on it, including my best friend. So they start asking questions, and the answers are all correct to the knowledge that we know about this boy.
Hello. Tonight, I bring you a terrifying story of a haunted house. My grandmother's haunted house. Now, if you venture to Costa Mesa, California, and you find yourself upon Chautauqua Boulevard and travel to the top of the hill, you will no longer find her house, for it is torn down. It has been replaced by some ultra-fancy new building, some new residence for some gillionaire. Her previous estate was quite humble, but was in a very nice place. Now, there was a woman who lived there named Mary Scutter. Let's try that again. Her name was Mary Scutter. And she haunted that house. Yes. The first tale is horrifying. I don't know. Prepare yourself. When she passed away in the night, murdered by natural causes. When she was having her stuff moved, well, she wasn't having her stuff moved, she was dead, but her stuff was being moved from the house. The movers carrying a couch or a chair or some other furniture bumped into the door on the way out, and in that door was a perfect MS. And it was there for the rest of the time that house stood MS. Every time we saw it, we thought of Mary Scutter. It gets worse. It gets worse from here, believe it or not. It was said by my older cousins growing up that if you slept in the study, you would hear footsteps up and down the hallways. Shh, I can hear them now. If you slept in this study, you would hear these footsteps in the wee hours of the morning. Now, this had nothing to do with the fact that my grandma, her bedroom and the bathroom were on other sides of the study. So there was no way this was actually my grandmother just walking past the study to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. No, this was Mary Scutter haunting the halls. Yes. Prepare yourself. I have two more stories. One night was a Christmas Eve. I found myself sleeping on the floor of the living room with all of the cousins. There are many, many, many of us. All told now, there's roughly 22, not including our own children. We were all in the living room. And as we were falling asleep, the wind picked up. And bang, bang, bang. The screen door leading out into the middle court area of the house. For it was a strange house laid out with like an outdoorsy court in the middle of it. The wind was knocking the screen door, and my older cousin Damien, he said, Mary Scutter's trying to get in. And this scared the living crap out of me. Now, the wind picked up, and eventually the door flung open, and a gust came into the living room. And my cousin Damien yelled, It's Mary Scutter! And I clutched my pillow so tight and closed my eyes, and I was so scared. It was Mary Scutter. I knew it. It should also be noted my grandmother worked for the secretary. No, I'm sorry. My grandmother was the secretary to the lady whose husband wrote the Music Man. I am forgetting his name. I should have done some research before I started recording this video, but I did not. Now, if you're familiar with the musical Music Man, you may know there are certain incantations found within it. If you went into the bathroom in the witching hour, looked in the mirror, and said 3 times, and you had to spin as you said them. If you said, shapoopy, 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 the ghost of Mary Scutter would appear in the mirror and stare at you. But she would not always come, for Mary Scutter was a girl who was hard to get. Now, I hope these spooky stories did not frighten you too much, that you are indeed able to sleep tonight, if indeed they did terrify you. I'm sorry. And I certainly hope the ghost of Mary Scutter does not find her way into your living room via a gust of wind. Damien.
Hi. I'm Spooky Owl, and I guess I should start my ghost stories with the fact that I've been a professional psychic medium for 19 years now. And even though I have had many paranormal experiences, it doesn't keep you from mourning the loss of friends and family members. So, one of my stories will have to do with that. But the first story is my mother and I did a kind of girls' weekend while I was getting trained in some healing energy work. And we stayed at this beautiful bed and breakfast inn in it's on the coast in California, Capitola. And it was just a lovely weekend in a Victorian that served breakfast. And one night after class and after we went to dinner, we had 2 adjoining rooms separated by a bathroom. And I drifted off to sleep. I had my headphones on because I'm a medium, and new places often have energies attached. I either listen to music or watch TV, have the TV on all night to distract. I know that sounds weird, but that's what I do. So we were going to sleep, we were turning in, I had my headphones on, and I drifted off to sleep. And all of a sudden, I sit up in bed, eyes wide open, freaked out, because I heard something, and then I saw my mother at the end of my bed. And I was like, Mom, what's wrong? Are you okay? Everything okay? She didn't answer. And then she walked towards me, and I realized it wasn't my mother. I mean, the only reason I thought it was my mother was the only person who could have been in my room. And what walked by me was this young woman with brown hair. didn't see colors because it was dark, but it was this skirt, full skirt. And she walked right by me as if I wasn't there, and I watched her walk through a wall. And even though I do this stuff, it was jarring, and I had never seen a full-bodied apparition before. Kind of the holy grail in ghost hunting, which I also do. So I sat there completely kind of shocked, and because it was kind of, I wasn't even a medium then, I was before my journey into that kind of psychic work. I didn't say it. I didn't tell anybody. I might have told my mom, but I didn't tell anybody. I certainly didn't contact the hotel. So, flash forward about 2 years, and it's kind of on my mind again. It still bugs me what that was. So, I got up the courage, and I emailed the bed and breakfast, and I explained what I saw, and if you think I'm crazy, that's totally fine, but this is what happened. And the response after 2 years of me sweating over this was, oh yeah, you saw the woman who's upstairs. People usually see the man who's downstairs. The woman who's upstairs is rare. She must like you. And thus is the story of my life. So with that experience, it kind of opened new doors. I did continue with energy healing work, but expanded when I met my best friend, who's now like a brother to me, and he predicted I was going to be a reader and a medium, and I was like, no, that's not me. And 2 years later, I was a reader and a medium. So it's been quite the journey. I've enjoyed it mostly. But as I said before, it does not stop you from grieving and feeling loss, because we're all in the same boat there. So 5 years ago, my dad died, and it was one of those things that I think my mom and I were numb, and he was diagnosed 3 months before, and within 3 months he was gone, and our heads were spinning. We didn't see that coming, didn't want to consider that as the end. And Dad was a great guy. I mean, we were too much alike in some ways, so we would butt heads, but nobody can deny that he was well liked and very well respected, and just a cool dude. And he would laugh for me saying cool dude. So my dad passes away, and I really haven't fully grieved it at this point. About a month after, I had a complete meltdown on my birthday in front of people, and that was just like, wow, I've never had a breakdown like that before. But I kept it all inside. And again, being a medium, I'm like, okay, you better give me a sign. You better come through. And I was with that best friend again, and he was always trying to make me feel better, so he took me to a movie. And I get in his car, and he said, yeah, I was at the gas station, and they gave free Cokes away. I don't drink Coke. Do you want this? And I don't really drink soda that much, but it's like, okay, sure. And I picked up the can, and it was when Coca-Cola had names and like titles on their products, and it said Dad. And I start to tear up, and I'm like, did you do this on purpose? And he's like, I swear to God, I didn't even see it. So I was like, all right, Dad, that's cool, but it's a little generic, so I'm not going to really buy into this unless it's more specific. I said this in my head. And I kind of tell Todd too. I'm like, yeah, well, I need more of a sign. So, flash forward another couple weeks, and we're off to see the movies again. And this time we are at the concession stand. And this poor kid in front is just trying to do his job. And he leans over and says, "I'm really sorry, but the soda fountain is broken down, and we have right next to you a huge stand of sodas. So pick one from there and we'll charge you the same that we would for a concession soda." I didn't think much of it, and I didn't even look. I went like this and grabbed the first bottle that I touched. And they were all Cokes on the side that I was on. So I grabbed it and I put it down. And when I put it down, it said, "Marty," which is my dad's name. And I obviously was blown away. And Todd's laughing. He said, "Well, you wanted a sign." And I went tearing through the bottles. I mean, I tore through the whole stand. And there was not one other bottle that said Marty. And I still have that bottle. So, I don't want to abuse it, but when I need a sign, I ask for it and I get it. And that's really given me a lot of peace. So it's not a spooky story, but it's my favorite story. And thank you for listening.
Hi, Deep Whispers. Halloween is one of my most favorite times of year. Certainly my most favorite holiday. And look, I even wore a bow tie, technically, for this. So, where do we begin? I've had a lot of experiences with the paranormal growing up through my adulthood. A lot. But there's one specific story that just grabs me every time I think about it. And I want to share that with you because it's very personal. And I believe there's something to it. So, in 2008, we added to our family with a cat. A beautiful Turkish van, long hair. We named her Gravity. She was a very special cat. She was half dog almost. She would go hiking with me back when I could hike. She would heel through the whole hike and she would come back home with me, just following me wherever I went. There were times I just had to do this, fold my arms, and she would just kind of crawl into them, and I would carry her around the house while I let her sniff things like light switches or see on top of the counters, which she didn't usually get to do. Gravity. And she was such a good cat. She was amazing. My most favorite cat. And I don't know that there will be another that measures up. In 2015, we moved to a fairly secluded spot in New England. And she went out one day, and she didn't come home that night. And she could stay out until midnight easily, sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning if she was being a real brat. But that night she didn't come home at all, and I didn't sleep. And for 4 days I wondered what happened. So on the fourth day, I went out in search. We were on 10 acres of land, and the neighbors each had 10 acres of land, and it was just woods and rocks and climbing and canyons. It was beautiful, but I was just screaming her name, trying to find her. Gravity. Gravity. Which I probably, if anybody was around, I sounded like a screaming moron. It's like gravity is everywhere. I was looking for my gravity. I couldn't find her. She wasn't coming. And I was crying. And I was looking. And it was daunting because my condition had already started to take me down back then. But my need to find a family member drove me. And I was looking, and I couldn't find her. And I looked harder and longer. Until I didn't know where else to look. So I came back through the woods. I sat down, I just plopped down in a big boulder, a huge rock, outside of the front door. I just said, gravity, I don't know where you are. I need help. I need to find you. And I just sighed and I looked at the ground. And I heard her meow in my ear. I said, where are you? She meowed again. And I followed her meow. At least 100 feet down the road, dirt road, to the next door neighbor's driveway. Couldn't even see their house. Everybody's up on a hill. And walking up the driveway, there she was. Nature had gotten her. But she was still intact. She still looked exactly like her. And I was so appreciative that I got to find her. I took off my shirt and I wrapped her in it. And I took her back to the house. And I buried her in the back, giving her a ceremony, lots of love. And it feels still. You know, it doesn't matter what the connection is, with whom or what. When there's love there, when there is a connection, it lasts. And that was a loving connection with a cat. I mean, not just any cat, but I know there are plenty of people maybe looking at me like I'm nuts right now. And that's okay. It's my experience, and there's no way I can explain it. I didn't know where she was. I followed a ghostly meow. Not all ghost stories are about being scared. Some are about love. And that's one of them. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. And enjoy life.
So this happened back when I was 21 years old, and I'm currently 41 years old. So this was a long time ago. So my boyfriend at the time had an apartment, and he lived
My turn. Okay. I guess this is the scariest story that I can tell. I don't have anything about ghosts or ghouls or, I don't know, anything supernatural, but I do have an experience which would traumatize you. It's about the healthcare system. I had appendicitis. I was noticing the pain for some time, and I thought maybe it was some other pain, some undiagnosed issue. So I got visited by a home doctor, and they said nothing was wrong. So I went about my business, and another flare-up happened. This happened a few times before I eventually went to hospital over the course of a few weeks, and I went in to the hospital, and it was 1 a.m. and the hospital was oddly empty, actually. A lot of emergency rooms are quite full during the night. But this one wasn't. Anyway, I got taken in and assessed, and fairly quickly it was found out that I did indeed have appendicitis, which of course is a dangerous condition if you leave it untreated. And so, as is normal, the procedure for appendicitis is to go under surgery to get it removed, so that you don't get sepsis or poisoning or something from your own intestines in your bloodstream. But anyway, I got left, and for some reason that was never explained to me, they left me in the assessment room, which was, in the triage, just aside from the waiting room where you get assessed for them to find out what the problem is, on the hard bench. And I got left there, and it was 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. and I was fairly distracted from the pain, and so they gave me a large bag of antibiotics, and they checked on me for the next few hours, and they said for some reason or another that they couldn't move me into the ward and I had to stay in the triage. And so I stayed there until about 11 a.m. the next day, by myself on the wooden metal bench thing. It's about 9 hours, perhaps more, hard for me to remember. But anyway, they, while doing so, hooked me up to a water bag to make sure that I did not dehydrate. And for some reason there was either an error in input or a malfunction with the device, and I noticed that it was going on the fastest speed possible, and a full 8-hour bag, or full 6-hour bag, whatever the largest standard is, was set to drain within under an hour. And the pain was actually quite significant at the time. The pain from receiving the water that quickly into my arm was more significant than the pain of the appendicitis. And so I went and tried to find someone, but there was no one at the reception area for the emergency room, which I thought was really strange. But eventually someone from down a hall in a different department saw me wandering around at about 4 a.m. and fixed the machine and said that it had indeed been on the wrong setting, and that the speed at which it was going could have led to some serious complications. Anyway, so after waiting in the triage for no real reason, they let me into their ward. And once I was in the ward, I, after maybe 4 or 5 hours, got surgery. And then, after the surgery, I had to stay in hospital, of course, as is standard procedure to heal. And I had the worst sleep of my life, which was saying a lot considering the night before I had no sleep. But that sleep was constantly interrupted by an old lady with possibly dementia or something staring at me very intently and very angrily, wanting me to get out of bed. And that was my hospital experience. Afterwards I went home and healed up and I was okay, but that was one of the worst experiences I've had at hospital, and I have had many. But the kind of level of unprofessionalism in that hospital was unparalleled, even with my experience as being a healthcare student. That's my rather mundane but possibly relaxing story.
Hello again. Did you enjoy these tales that we've presented to you tonight? Some were frightening, some were amusing, some heartwarming. Now it's my turn, and I'm going to tell you a story of my very first encounter with a spirit. I say my very first because there have been many, but this is one of the more memorable. I was about 14 and spending the night at a friend's house. I was asleep on the pull-out sofa in her living room. It was the middle of the night and we had been asleep for quite a while. I don't know what woke me. I didn't hear a noise, but when I opened my eyes, there was a woman hovering above my face. She was bent over, peering down at me, and she was completely transparent. I don't think I've ever screamed as loud before or since. I screamed so loud I woke up her entire family. My friend's father came to check on us, and I was hysterical. Now, I remembered so vividly what I had seen that I got a piece of paper and I drew a picture and I showed it to them. And my friend's father said to me, Oh, you saw my mother. So, I don't think she meant to harm us or me. She just wanted to check on the stranger sleeping in her house amongst her family. Now, that might not seem too scary to you, but the next time you open your eyes in the middle of the night, imagine a ghostly face staring back at you. I hope you've enjoyed your time with us. Let us know which story was your favorite. Good night, my friends, from the Midnight Society.